As we can see from the first video, the Buick 455, the other guy's Buick 455 is up and running. And not only is it up and running, it's actually running very well. This despite the fact that I haven't even pulled the valve covers to check the rockers. It's still running great. We got to test the stock exhaust manifolds. We also got to test the long tube headers, which was great. And as you can see, I mentioned in the first video, if you haven't seen that, check it out. That video is right here. As I mentioned in the first video, I wanted to include also the nitrous test in that first video, but there's so much cool stuff to cover with the nitrous. We need to talk about the fueling, and we need to talk about the timing. There's so much cool stuff to cover with the nitrous. I decided, hey, it deserves its own video, but don't worry. I'm gonna post this video right after the first one, so basically you get a 2-for-1 back-to-back videos, that's right. So let's check out the nitrous. So we're gonna install this nitrous plate. This is a simple sniper kit, a little adjustable plate. We're gonna run a small jet, not gonna make a ton of power because we're not even running this thing over 5,000 RPM, which means we're gonna have a big torque gain from this thing because it's before the 52 number. So we got a 40 nitrous jet and a 34 fuel jet. We'll adjust the fuel pressure, find out how that works, and we might have to adjust that a little bit, either adjust the fuel pressure, adjust the nitrous jet, adjust the fuel jet, whatever we wanna do, but this is easy to install and it makes lots of power. Here's installed, dual spray bars. You know, the nice thing about having to run that brawler carburetor, although I really wanted to run the quadrajet, which would have been very cool, but I could not get it to work. I didn't want to spend a ton of time tuning that thing and use up all the dyno time just trying to get that carburetor to work. We threw the Holley, that brawler, that inexpensive brawler carburetor on there. It worked really well. I didn't even look at the jetting. I just threw it on. It worked. As a matter of fact, I changed the jetting once on the stock combination with the stock exhaust manifolds. It made very little difference in power, so it was kind of right, however it came out of the cabinet. But using that carburetor and with this adapter plate allowed me to put this nitrous plate on because it was designed for a 4150 Holley style and not a quadrajet. So see, silver lining in everything. So if you take a look when we're setting the nitrous up, we want to adjust the fuel pressure and the fuel pressure of the fuel going to the nitrous, so the feed for it, which for us is right here on the dyno. So what we do is turn the pump on, and we have this line with a restricted orifice on it because we want to check the fuel pressure while the thing is flowing, because if you just check the static pressure and you turn it on and engage the nitrous and you get a bunch of fuel flow, the pressure will probably drop. So we test it with the fuel flowing, adjust it, we're going to set it at about 6 pounds, and that's a good starting point. So right now it's a little bit high, maybe 6 1/4 or so, so we're going to bring it down a little bit. Give you a little zoom in there so you can see it. So you can see with it flowing now, 6 PSI. Look how slow down there. Here's how we get the bottle up to temperature. It's a cool Westtech bottle heater. See, you got water inside there. We just plug it in. Heats the water up. I mean, if you leave it plugged in and switched on, it'll heat the water up to 120 or 130 degrees. You don't need it that hot. Then we just submerge the bottle in there, get the bottle up to temperature. We can measure the pressure too. We got our nitrous line going up for our solenoid. Got a plate under there. Spaghetti wire in there. Got our fuel line, so we got our, remember our fuel pressure. Got the line going over to the fuel solenoid. We got our wiring up here. All we got to do is turn it on, activate it with a button. I'll go ahead and show you that. We'll go walk in there. So here's our cool nitrous activation button. So we go to wide open throttle, release it, and then we hit the RPM hits. Boom! Nail that button. All the nitrous. And then just hold the button down just like you do when you're out on the car, man. Just like when you're on the street, you're street racing. Whoa, bye. Obviously, once again, we're starting off our stock one with the stock exhaust manifolds, 308 horsepower and 465 foot-pounds. Then we added our headers, and here's what happened when we added the simple NOS Sniper nitrous pipe, a little adjustable. We put 40 nitrous jets in it and 34 fuel jets, and then ran with 6 pounds of fuel pressure. Here's what happened when we added the nitrous. As expected, we got big gains. The peak power jumped up to 405 horsepower. Peak torque jumped up to 576 foot-pounds. We activated this thing at 3,000 RPM, and it was all in by about 3,500. It just takes a little while for the dyno and everything to react. So this is, just like what we would expect from nitrous, big power gains. It was getting a little bit richer out at the top. We could have got a little bit more consistent gains with this nitrous if I would have spent a bunch of time and played with it, but unfortunately I had to take this thing off so the guys at Westech could put a Coyote up there. They're going to run that, and then I'm going to put the 455 back on, and hopefully before that I'll be able to do a cam swap and run some cam stuff. So here is part one of our other guy's Buick 455. I'm happy that we even got it running. It did have a few leaks here and there, and obviously a few issues as we had demonstrated. We had to fix the pan and the rubbing with one of the connecting rods and stuff, but that's all part of the adventure. Let's get to our conclusion. What did you guys think about the nitrous testing on our other guy's Buick 455? And guess what? I've got a special treat for you, because the guys that left already or are not watching the conclusion, they don't get this extra information. I did not provide this in the video, and I'm providing it now. So everybody that left, they lose out. So let's talk a little bit about timing. So when we ran this thing, we were running the nitrous. First of all, we ran it on pump gas. We ran 91 octane. So I wanted to be safe with this thing. This thing ran best NA with 39 degrees of total timing. It wasn't a big change going from 37 to 39, but what we do when we tune is we will start out at a very conservative timing level. In this case, I didn't know anything about this motor, so I started out at about 25 degrees. I would go up to 27 and then 29, and yada, yada, yada. And basically, I don't care what that number is, what the number shows on the timing light. All I care is that if I add timing and it makes more power, then I try it again, and then I try it again, and I try it again until it stops giving me more power, and then that becomes the number. So in this case, 39 degrees when the thing was NA. So when I ran it under nitrous, we retarded the timing. This wasn't a very big shot. I mean, it was a 40 jet, so normally I would take away maybe 2 or 3 degrees. Two things made me go more timing retard on this combination. First of all, we're running on pump gas at 91 octane. I didn't want to hurt the motor, but mostly because I was engaging the nitrous so early. We're starting our runs at 2,000 RPM and only running to 5,000 RPM. I'm engaging the nitrous at 3,000 RPM, which is fairly low, so I didn't want to hurt the motor. So in this case, I took away 6 degrees of timing, which is a pretty healthy amount for such a small shot, but it worked out very well. And before I did that, I actually ran the motor at 36 degrees with no nitrous going in it, and it doesn't really lose too much power doing that. So I knew that we were plenty safe, it was the right thing to do, and we weren't going to lose a ton of power doing it. So that's what we did. We went from 39 degrees down to 33 degrees and then activated the nitrous. So now let's talk about air-fuel ratio, and guys get wrapped up in that too. When I ran this thing NA, it was not super responsive to changes in air fuel. When I put this carburetor on, I never even looked at the jetting in the Brawler carburetor. I took it out of the carb cabinet, stuck it on the motor, and ran it. As it turned out, it was fairly rich. It was in the low to mid 11s. And I know every tuner out there is pulling their hair out right now, thinking, you don't know anything about tuning. I could make a lot more power at 12.9 or 13.0 or whatever their magic number is. The reality is we do air fuel the same way that we do timing. I will start out with the thing being rich. I will take timing or take air fuel away, meaning I will lean the thing out until it stops making power. Now in this case, I started out and ran the motor with this carburetor the way it came out of the cabinet. I saw that it was fairly rich. I thought, okay, good, I'm going to be able to tune some power out of this thing. I took 3 jets out of the primary and 3 jets out of the secondary, and guess what? It showed almost no power gain at all. So with limited dyno time, I didn't want to chase that. If I would have saw 20 horsepower or even 10 horsepower, I would have continued to go down that trail with the air-fuel ratio, but this thing wasn't very responsive. But when I added the nitrous, the thing was also very rich. Now, not too much richer than it was NA, but I think under the nitrous, if I would have chased it a little bit, I could have got a little bit more power at the top. The reason that I didn't chase that, again, available dyno time, because dyno time is, obviously time consuming and expensive, but more so the fact that I'm probably never going to run nitrous on this thing again. And every time I say I'm never going to do it again, I always do it after that. But I'm going to run a turbo on this. So I didn't want to hurt the motor with nitrous. I'm going to run a turbo on it. I haven't taken it apart. I have no idea if the rockers are even tight, let alone what the ring gap is. But I want to run a single turbo on this thing. We've got cams coming up for it. We got all kinds of cool stuff. So again, make sure, like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, do all that stuff. More cool Buick stuff, and then the Chevy coming up.